welcome back. Today we're going to be doing an episode on how to, basically some of the basics of building your army. We've had a question, there's a lot of new players out there, people new to bolt action, and they're on a budget. So when they're trying to build their army, it's difficult sometimes to know what you want to purchase next and to buy when you haven't had that opportunity to play some games. And some people can't afford to just buy everything and pick out the pieces that they want. And there's something frustrating to, purchasing a model and then not really playing it and realizing that you kind of didn't need that piece of equipment in your army list for the style that you end up playing. So I had a great question the other day on our channel from Dan Bowman. Sorry if I got that wrong, Dan. Dan actually had a really well thought out question, and I went ahead and printed it. I'm going to be going through some of it. Now, obviously, this is my opinion. There's going to probably be some differing opinions out there, different people. But for the most part, these questions are very well done. And from the aspect of putting together your army on a budget is kind of what he's getting at, is what's the best bang for his buck. And I'm going to try to explain that to him. Now, he's currently building a United States Army. He bought the starter set, the armor, or the D-Day Firefight set. So the D-Day Firefight set, it's a neat little intro set. It's got some dice in it. It's got the little rule book, which is actually really handy to have. And then he's got 12 Germans and 20 Americans, and then he's got a half track. Now, 20 Americans is what we're going to focus on today because that's kind of the direction that he's going to be taking his army is with the United States. So, one of the things, just right off the bat from about a budget standpoint, is purchasing the army books. When you're first getting started and you get your first starter set, you do not necessarily need to get the Armies of the United States starter book. There's a great website, and I'm going to put the link right below the video here for Easy Army. And it's if you search Easy Army Bolt Action, it's a free site where you can kind of do list constructions and list building. You just need to register. It's free. There's no gimmicks or anything. I think Warlord even encourages people to use them now. They have a banner below it. It's an awesome. Once you kind of figure out how to use it, because you need to pick three. You need to pick the core requirements for a single platoon, which is a lieutenant and the two infantry squads. Once you have those, you can open up the boxes and select whatever. Because in a standard reinforced platoon, you can have up to 5 infantry squads, and then the auxiliary stuff like an armored car, a tank, a mortar, different nationalities. It already has it in there for each nationality. So, like the United States can have extra medium machine guns, the Russians could have extra anti-tank guns. It's right there. Also, if you scroll down, there's selectors for theater selectors, which changes your dynamic, which might usually adds an extra infantry squad or something, but then limits some of the other things you can take. So if you're using that, that's a great way to look at the point value, what it has, what equipment is on that vehicle. So you don't have the book from the Armies of the United States and you're thinking you might want to take a Greyhound scout car because you really like that model, but you don't want to buy it if it's a piece of junk on the battlefield. So you can get on Easy Army, see how many points it would cost you, play around with putting that into your army list and what it'll do for you, and you just basically do a lot of list building, which is actually kind of fun. I do that a lot, trying to come up with new little things that I might like to build with the existing models that I have. Alright, so getting on to that, he asked some questions right off the bat. And these aren't really about army building per se, some of them are about rules, but some of them they have to do with how you're building your army. And he asked, 1 or 2 men with your officer. That's a very common question, 1 or 2 men with your officer. And there's 2 schools of thought for that. I think the majority school of thought, and the one that I particularly follow, is 1 man with my lieutenant. And the reason I do that is because of the special rule small team. Any squad or any group of models that are 2 or less, it's -1 to hit them. So if you do the math on that, and they're getting shot at by a 10-man squad of infantry, normally if they're a 3, they're in some hard cover, 5, long range 6. So a small team bonus actually makes you a 7. And then also, if you're not in that hard cover, you're not at the long range, then you go down, and then that's 7s. It actually, mathematically, is a lot more advantageous to keeping your guy alive, as opposed to 10 shots with that third guy, and you're hitting you on 6s. If you're savvy with your lieutenant, you will, try to keep him in some cover. He just needs to give his command radius to the troops. He doesn't need to be exposing himself to a lot of dangers. So I think 2 is the way to go. Some people like to play 3, or 2 extra attendees, and they'll give all of them maybe submachine guns or assault rifles if you're German, and it gives them another combat squad. It's a small little squad that in turns 4, 5, or 6, when that extra 6 shots can really tip the scale, and they like to play them that way. I prefer the one guy for the preserving him. He still has a few shots in there, depending on what you give him for his weaponry, and it just keeps him alive longer. The other thing is, against snipers, which commonly try to pick out your lieutenant, a 3-man team doesn't protect him any more than anything, because they actually get to pick the lieutenant and kill him off. Now with the FAQ, they did FAQ that the HQ team does not go away, does not leave the board anymore. You may see more people leaning towards having that extra guy in there, just because if he would get picked off by a sniper, it's not a 50% check anymore, and this HQ unit is now, they acts as if they've lost their NCO, just like a squad here, but now it's still a order dice on the table. It didn't take a 50% check. So you may see that FAQ modify a few people's line of thoughts on that. I'm still going to stick with the 2. But it's completely up to you. You just know that you're giving up that small team and throwing your lieutenant into combat. Another thing is for the size of the thing. If you're running transports, pay attention to that too, because a lot of transports carry in the 8, 10, or 12-man category. And if you're going to take a 10-man squad and you want to put your lieutenant in there too, and it only holds 12, well, that third guy is a third wheel. So you have to make one less guy in your squad if you're going to do that. Alright, so the next question is medium or heavy machine gun, and why the decision? So, medium and heavy machine gun. These are a couple things. Well, the medium machine gun in particular is something, it's such an iconic piece of equipment. It's such an iconic piece of equipment that it's difficult to not want to put them into your list. There's a British machine gun, all those movies that just plugging away there. Obviously the German MG42 on the tripod mount with the squad just laying down that cover fire. If you're around my age or maybe a little younger, the old school, the old Avalon Hill board game enthusiasts, the squad leader type systems, or like firepower and things like that, where you've got your chits that represent these infantry squads. Now I'm basically bringing these to more of to life. But it was very common to have the light machine gun team, medium machine gun team, and that medium machine gun or heavy machine gun were a token on their own, because they were able to set up in a strategic point and put down a lot of firepower on those different lanes of travel. And that's how they were used in combat to a certain extent, and that's how they're used in the old Avalon board games, and well, you just really want to take them. Unfortunately, until 2nd edition comes out, which is coming up in the autumn, under the rules as it stands, you don't see a lot of medium machine gun teams being taken. Maybe the Soviet player, because they can put a gun shield on there, so it's a pretty nice value. But for me, if I'm purchasing necessary units to get an army started on the tabletop, the medium machine gun's not really, or the heavy machine, the medium machine gun's not really something I'm going to want, because it has a 36-inch range, which is great, but it only puts out 4 shots. If your club or your local group are playing the .NET rules, those are basically a set of standardized club rules that are used kind of worldwide. The .NET rules give the machine gun 6 shots, and now it becomes much more viable. And you say those 2 shots, are they really that important? Yes and no. This unit here at regular costs 50 points. So you've got 3 wounds, 4 shots for 50 points. I can take a 5-man infantry squad. That's 5 wounds, 5 shots for 50 points. Range is 6 inches less, but I can move these guys 6 inches and shoot. So it doesn't make the medium machine gun team with 4 shots being that awesome piece of equipment that it was. 6 shots makes it a value, and so there's talk about the rules changing on that. And I for one would like to see that. So I would skip the medium machine gun when I'm first building on a budget, mainly because it doesn't really provide anything that I don't already have. I doubt you're going to be in the early start of the game up to 1,000 points using your maximum amount of allotted squads. So you could always take an extra 5-man squad of infantry with just rifles and do the same type of thing. So heavy machine gun, now that's a different animal because heavy machine gun is a heavy weapon, and it gives you +1 penetration up to 18 inches away against armor. Against infantry, it doesn't matter the range, up to 36 inches, you're doing +1 penetration. So you're facing a squad of veteran infantry that can be very tough to kill, needing 5s. You're killing them on a 4 with your heavy machine gun. Now it's only 3 shots, but it's much more versatile because if they would have a truck or an armored car, you basically have a weapon, a heavy weapon that can penetrate armor. So if they have a 7 armor, you can cause pins to that vehicle. You can fully enclosed cause pins to that vehicle. You can knock it out of the game. You can kill trucks and jeeps on 5s. So the heavy machine gun is different than the medium machine gun. And if you're looking for a light, especially in the United States, which is kind of what we're talking about. Obviously, these are Germans. I don't have Americans. Alan has those. He's not here. But same concept across the board for all the nationalities. And I'll get to some of his more specific questions for Dan as far as United States in specific when we get there. But if you're looking for just that light anti-vehicle, anti-armor car, put some pins on it, the heavy machine gun's not a bad way to go. Especially since the United States doesn't have squad-based anti-tank weapons. Like the late war Germans have Panzerfaust in there. The Americans don't have that option. You have anti-tank grenades, those can be very iffy. So it may be something you may want to take as an American player. Especially since you have so many options to upgrade your vehicles with heavy machine guns for a lesser point cost. You can really start to combine. You get 3 heavy machine gun sources firing on one target. It has a tendency to not last that long. So even like a truck with a heavy machine gun on it, a heavy machine gun team, and then your Sherman tank with a heavy machine gun pintle mount against a Jeep or a half track. You can just imagine it going down the road with all those 50 cal bullets flying over. You're going to end up blowing it up or putting so many pins on it that whoever's inside there isn't going to even get out. So, all right. So next question is light, medium, or heavy mortar, and why the decision? Now, you can only take one of those slots in a normal single platoon, and that's pretty much what we're talking about today, is a single platoon. That's the most common build, the most commonly accepted for local tournaments is the single platoon build. Now that is a interesting question. So one of the things, usually what I tend to find is that a lot of players, and this is something that you want to keep in mind, again, when you're first building your army, is I would say find that unit, or whether it's a unit that your grandfather had served in, or something from a movie or a TV show that really inspired you, whether it's the Tom Hanks Saving Private Ryan, or if it's some older World War II movie, and you're going to really, you've had a passion for that. Maybe when you're a kid like me, you built those tanks, you built those models and put them on the shelf and they collected dust, and one of your other friends talked you into blowing it up with fireworks when you got older. Now, we're basically being kids again under a format of being chess players, where we can collect our toys or collect our models, go into the model shop, build those, buy those, get them online, get that joy of being a kid again, and then using them to play in a game that is actually very challenging and very rewarding. So find that inspiration that you really like first off, and then decide how you want to build your army. And if you don't have that, you're just building a generic platoon, then you got to look at how you want to do your play. The bonus of a light mortar is that it's a two-man team. So it's got that small target, just like I talked about with the lieutenant. It can move and fire. It's not a fixed team, but it only has a short range, 24 inches. It's a light suppression. It does just a minimal amount of damage, but you can move and fire it. So if you're taking like a paratrooper battalion, you can imagine they jumped in with minimum equipment, and you want them all ground forces, no vehicles. You want to be able to move across the board on foot and continue firing, because the Americans can move and fire without a penalty, which is super powerful. I love that rule. That light mortar may be what you want to move along with them and support them without being set up here on the back of the board. Theme scores play an important part. I shouldn't say lost, I didn't win U.S. Nationals. I came in 3rd place. And when you look at the points breakdown, I had more battle points than the winner. I had a better sportsmanship score than the winner. Where I got dinged hard was my theme. I didn't spend a whole lot of effort in putting a thematic effect to my army. I didn't take all the most overpowered stuff, but it just didn't make sense. So if you're going to go to an event where it's comped or that theme is important, it's also fun to have a themed army, because then when people come look at it, they're not like, why is that with that? It makes no sense, because people want to see that historical accuracy, and it makes more sense. Hey, if you got the models and you want to play it, that's fine. Nobody really cares in bolt action, because everything is so balanced that you're not going to have a huge advantage. But it's fun when you have that themed army. So a heavy mortar may not make sense with some type of army build. Now, and you also, to try to take the most value, because when you look at a heavy mortar does a pretty decent amount of damage. It's 2d6 HE. If you take it as inexperienced, it's not hardly any more points than a medium mortar at regular. So again, you're mostly looking at your thematics. Is you have a bunch of veteran infantry and an inexperienced heavy mortar, because you're taking that value deal. It might look poorly on your theme score. If you're not worried about theme score, we're just worried about tabletop play, that obviously the heavy mortar does more damage, has the same minimum range. Usually if you take it as inexperienced, however, to be cheap, your opponents will usually make you pay for that, because they're wounding those guys on a 3-up, and it doesn't take much to start putting a few rifle shots on a mortar. So then you have to buy the spotter, who's 10 points. Now a spotter, you can put your guy back behind this building, and the spotter can be out here in this hard cover looking down range for you. And that's great because he's a small team, but if you bought your mortar to inexperienced, he's also inexperienced. So unless he's in a fully enclosed house, he's dying on a 3. And then you're going to have to move that mortar so it can see if he dies. If you buy your mortar, like I say, a medium mortar at regular, or even a heavy mortar at regular, or a veteran, you're paying those points, but you don't have to worry so much. One, he gets an extra crewman, so you lose the small team like a light mortar at a medium or heavy, but you've got an extra body, so if they do get that hit on you from range and a guy goes down, you're not taking that 50% break check. So medium mortar is pretty much standard, great value, good points cost, pick an order dice. If you have if you really want that 2d6 HE and you have the points in your army list and you have that mortar, you can take it. Now, the whole thing is, do I need a mortar? You may not. They are very handy to have utilized correctly. If you're expecting to destroy your entire opponent as he's advancing on you, and you're going to lay down mortar cover and save yourself, you better bring your 6s, because that rarely happens. What they are great at, and if you watch my last How to Play demo, it didn't really work for me, but the mechanics were right. Mathematically, Alan defies. He's like Tavarine from that Wheel of Time series. The dice fall weird for him sometimes, and you'd start to put that pressure on a unit in some type of cover that is actually advantageous to get them out of. They will move. They're great for firing at, say, snipers. Snipers don't want to move and fire. They're great for firing at howitzers and other type of fixed teams. You get that first shot on you, start that artillery war, and his howitzer is going to have to move, or you're going to hit it and destroy it. So it's a great counter to other people's fixed emplacements and stuff. So they are nice to have, and that's why I do prefer the medium or the heavy, because they have the range to reach out and touch other people's artillery. So Inexperienced regular or veteran for each unit and what to consider when deciding. Now that's a good question. First off, for a new player, I would not even dabble with inexperienced troops. One, because you end up with more bodies and you're trying to game on a budget in the first place. Two, inexperienced suck. I've seen a lot of excellent players try army lists using inexperience and they just don't hold up. When you're paying 13 points for a veteran, and you drop down 3 points to a regular, and you drop down 3 more points to a inexperienced, you think, hey, I get two guys for the price of one veteran guy, pretty much. Yes, but here's what happens is, on that veteran leadership of 10 and 5s to kill them, the 3 points less, it's regulars. They're 10 points, killing them on 4s. Next one down, you got 3 points, but you get a double penalty. Now your morale is 1 lower at 8. Now you are dying on 3s, just like the regular drop downs, and now they add in -1 to hit. So in the Warlord Games rulebook, one of the modifiers is inexperienced -1 to hit. So you're where the 3-point drop from veteran to regular was there. Now you got a 3-point drop from regular to inexperienced, but you also get the caveat of getting stuck with a -1 to hit. -1 to hit is suck. It's really bad. Now, I'm not saying you can't play inexperienced. My French, I'm playing 3 squads of inexperienced because it's a value to me, because the French special rule is that if you take 3 squads, you get a 4th one for free at the same point cost. Now, I'm only doing that in my dual platoon list. I would not run that in my single platoon list, because in my single platoon list, I only get 5 infantry choices. I don't want 4, well, 1's free. It's still, no, 1's free. So I wouldn't want 3 of my 5 being inexperienced troops, just because they don't have the ability to hold their ground for long. They get ground down really quickly. 1 round of shooting against them can knock out most of their firepower, and they're hitting on -1s. So they're really bad. If you take one and you can get him in a hard enclosed building where it's 6s to kill him, they can be very much a pain in the ass to your opponent and a very good value. But if you've seen any videos, morale checks are what win you the games a lot of times. And when you're taking, you're already starting at 8, and you've taken 2 pins, you're testing on 6s, the math is starting to really go against you. And when they do pass, they don't do a lot. It starts to really hurt. So I would stick to regular or veteran. Now, veteran are great because the points cost can really soak up into your army list, and they're very durable. As a new player, you may be getting used to some tactics, and your main tactic might be right away is just to push at people and try to get there and fight them. So I would definitely encourage taking veterans at first until you get a few. Okay, back. Family walked in there. So we were talking about veteran, inexperienced, or regular squads. Now, when you're putting a list together, obviously those veterans are going to last longer. If you're playing the Americans, if you look at the Warlord website for the errata and additional units, veteran U.S. infantry can take tough fighters for +1 point. As of right now, I think tough fighters is probably the most overpowered rule in bolt action. Even though I have commandos, I'm hoping that in 2nd edition they nerf it down a little bit. Maybe make it 1 additional attack every 2 guys, or re-roll your misses in combat. But as of right now, it gives you 2 attacks in close combat. Close combat is brutal in this game, and when you have something that's that powerful for +1 point, you should take it if you want to be taking the best for your points. I mean, it's just silly not to. For 1 point more to take a veteran squad and not take tough fighter. If I was building a U.S. list, I'd be torn all the time between taking paratroopers at veteran just for the coolness of it, but not being able to take tough fighter. But I could take more submachine guns and pay the points. It would be tough. I'd be feeling like I'm losing out on some points. So I do hope that 2nd edition nerfs down tough fighter a little bit. I think it unbalances the game to the point where everyone's leaning towards veteran tough fighters as being the way to go to be the most competitive. It'd be nice if it was much more balanced. make tough fighters, but not supermen. So the other thing to consider, is when you're looking at your qualities, is some of the equipment that your veterans and regulars and stuff can take. Oftentimes you'll see the veterans have much more access to additional specialized equipment. So if you're not taking, the tough fighters option, or if it gets nerfed down a little bit like it should, then you'll see these special equipment be a little more valuable for why I'm taking veterans. And you can take those submachine guns. A lot of times the veterans can take 2 light machine guns. The U.S. squad can take 2 bars in their squad, and that's how I've kind of been trying to encourage Alan to do, and he's starting to take is, veteran squad, 2 bars, tough fighters, very rock hard, solid unit. You can take them in 10 or 8 or whatever that you want it to take, and we'll talk about unit size here. But basically, so I'm building an army, and I can take, my squads here, and say I purchase them all at veteran, or I have 2 regulars and 2 veterans. So when I'm looking at my points, I don't have in a reinforced unit, I don't have my 5th infantry squad that I can take. Maybe I don't need it, maybe I do. Because we're going into the size of the unit. Because his next question is, order dice number more important than squad size and unit strength? Order dice number is important, but how he's asked it, order dice more important than squad size and unit strength, I wouldn't make your squads in a combat ineffective by trying to gain a couple extra order dice, because it serves you no purpose. You want that fine balance in between there. Like I was talking about, these guys being all veteran, I have them at 10-man squads. They're firing, they can do a lot of damage, they absorb a lot of damage, but they only do 1 pin. If I wanted to just take 2 guys out of each unit without even changing my point cost, I've now made an additional squad, all 8 men, and points didn't change at all. I've got an extra order dice. Now my squads are 8 men strong. I like the 8-man unit. I like the 8-man squads. I think that's as low as I go, unless I'm going to take a very specialized squad, like say with submachine guns, and maybe have some other purpose for them, like they drive up in a vehicle. But I think 8 is solid. 10 is great as well. I mean, if you've got the points in your army list to pay for the 10, you might as well. I go 8 a lot of times. I'll add a light machine gun if I can afford it for the points value. I'll definitely add one of these squads. I usually specialize with submachine guns. So I like a really close-in squad that complements my other one. So I'm kind of pulling these extra guys out of there and then putting a bunch of submachine guns in 1 unit. That's how I like to build mine. And I've gained an order dice. I haven't compromised the combat effectiveness of my units all that much. And so then to pick up extra order dice, which order dice are important. You don't want 4 veteran squads and a lieutenant and have 5 order dice, and your opponent have 10, because he's going to be dictating a lot of the combats. And he'll be putting the pins on you. He'll be deciding which units to engage, because he'll have the order dice, and you'll be more reacting. So you can easily fit some extra order dice in your army without stripping a lot of points. One way to do it is a medic. You can make him out of your basic set. Just odds I did is took a German guy and painted a white helmet on it and put a cross on it. No big deal. They have specialized ones you can purchase, but you don't need to. On a budget, you can just make them. You got your observer. You've got obviously your lieutenant you need. You can add like a bazooka team. The Germans have a Panzerschreck team. Great little unit. So you really start to gather your points, or your order dice together. If you have a few points, you might want to make a little 5-man squad and maybe make them specialized with 2 light machine guns and a couple guys, and you just use them basically to maybe defend your mortar or something that you're taking. That's where the light mortar comes in handy. Very cheap, throw them in there. So you want that fine balance. If this was a small point game and I had 4 10-man squads of veterans, and that's all I had, I could be against a unit or army that has a lot of order dice could have some problems. But next question is when to include transports. Transports, to me, I've come to find a lot of value in transports. I prefer to run trucks as they're cheap. They give you that 12-inch move into the board and then you can get out, or you can run 24 inches and be in the middle of the board and get out. It makes your squads a little bit vulnerable being in there, so I prefer to have veterans in the transports. That way if it does blow up, they get out and they don't take a lot of damage. So it's really depending on how your play style is. You definitely don't need transports, and mainly we're talking about Dan wanting to build a U.S. force. I wouldn't even take a transport until 1,000 points, because I would gear my whole army as veteran infantry with tough fighters, and then I would take my lieutenant at veteran at 2 points. I would take a bazooka team. I would take a sniper team, and maybe a medic because I have all these veterans. Definitely take the air observer. And then if you bought the D-Day Firefighter starter set, you should have got a free tank. I think that promotion's been going on for a while. And then I have that Sherman tank. This is right around 1,000 points. If this was Americans and these were veterans. And then if I wanted the extra order dice, what I would probably do is, like I said, strip these guys out and make 5 8-man squads. So that's what I would do. Whatever, you know that. I would make the 5 veteran squads, and I'd take 2 bars in each one. So when you're building your stuff, if you've got those bars, make those bars. The American veteran tough fighters, they can move and fire without a penalty. So you're always moving 6 inches, firing downrange. Moving 6 inches, firing downrange. In some scenarios, you may have to capture objectives. You can use outflanking if it's allowed, and just come in from the side, or you can just run. It's nice to have transport in those type of scenarios, but it's not necessary, because if you're playing veteran American tough fighters, they don't want to be anywhere near you unless you're really down to a few guys. You shrug off that damage needing 5s to hit you. You pass those order checks needing base 10 with 1 pin, so you don't get a squad that gets stuck in the middle of somewhere as often. So your guys can still, obviously you want to use as much cover and concealment as possible for your guys, but you can still get across the board at a decent pace without getting blown apart. So you'll just have to kind of play with throwing a transport in there. You can always take that German half track, and use it as an American half track when you're first starting playing. Nobody's going to care. Practice with it, play a few games with it. Armored transports suck up a lot of your points though, and they're nice, but you're going to have to use them correctly, and I'm not an expert at it. I tend to just race them ahead, because why have it? It brings in a medium machine gun or a heavy machine gun, but that's not going to win you a game. What's going to win you a game is your infantry troops being where they need to be intact. Real quick, I've been mentioning 1,000 points a lot, and Dan's probably like, dude, I got 2 squads of infantry. So the super value for the American Army is, if you buy the infantry box set, I think it's on Warlord right now for $38. You find it on NWS Online if you're in the United States. NWS Online is a very popular reseller and or new products, and they have an extreme discount on a lot of that stuff. If you pick up that 1 box set for the American infantry, it gives you 25 guys. You've already got 2 squads of 10 men in your infantry, in your thing. So now you can make 2 more 10-man squads. Like I said, I would prefer that extra squad of all 8 men. So that's 40 infantry right there. Boom. Put as many bars as you have in there. Your preference, whether you want submachine gun or not. The actual regular infantry for the Americans don't have they don't have like a submachine gun type squad. I mean, you can build one with different things, but if you're just taking basic infantry, you don't need the submachine guns really, because you've got tough fighters on everybody. So you're going to be attacking with 2 attacks in close combat, and you will be kicking the crap out of most things. But if you really want the flavor of that squad with the submachine gun, I definitely encourage you doing it if you want to put that on your NCO or whatever. go ahead, do it, because it's just 3 points. And if you have the points and it looks cool, you do get that, because the Americans also don't suffer a move and fire penalty, which is why a lot of times people take submachine guns, because you can move and not, so you don't take that with your rifles. You've got 8 shots. With the bars, you've got 10 shots in an 8-man squad, and you're moving and firing without a penalty is very powerful. So out of that 25-man box set, you just made 2 squads. That means you got 5 extra guys. You can make a dedicated lieutenant with an extra guy. Boom. You can make a bazooka, because it comes on the sprue. You make a bazooka team. Boom. And then you just model up yourself. Out of that last remaining guy, you model yourself up an air observer. If you have that free Sherman tank that came with the set, you now have a 1,000 point army. And this 1,000 point army, pretending this is a Sherman, the medic, you can fit him in there for an extra order dice by stripping out a few points. You know, go ahead. He's usually 30 points, I think. You don't need a medic. But if you want that extra order dice, go for it. The Sherman tank, it's probably the most versatile, one of the most versatile tanks of the war, and they have it in various options. You can take a Sherman, definitely don't take an experienced tank. Take a regular or veteran. The Americans have gyro stabilizers, so they can move and fire without a penalty with their tank. It also affects like small heavy weapons hitting you. You don't take pins if you're a veteran. I would probably just take it regular at first, and I would probably take the one that has the disadvantages like easily catches fire and thin sides to shave those points off. Add in that medic, add in that extra stuff. If you find your tank is getting creamed too much and you're catching fire because people are hitting you, you know, maybe strip that medic out and just play test it and play a few games. But this is a great core. I could take this core to any local tournament and probably do real well. Just because it's so steadfast. And I made my lieutenant the +2 with the veteran. I even printed an army list for it. Just playing around. Yeah, first lieutenant, regular, and I made mine 10-man squads, but I'd probably, because there's no cost difference, just strip 2 guys out of each. Bazooka team, Sherman tank, Air Force observer. So that gets to our next question, is forward observer. Importance of the forward observer. Now I'm assuming he means air, because he's talking about Americans. This guy here is very, very contentious in a lot of the circles because he is super powerful. He costs 75 points, and the American special rule is you get, not only do you get the 1 airstrike you purchase, but they also get an additional one. The British have a special rule where they get a free artillery observer. That's not nearly as powerful as this guy, because in no other way, other than a dual platoon, do you often get 2 of the airstrikes. So when you call in an airplane on something, it's very devastating. It can wipe a unit off the board if it comes in. It puts pins all around. And if you happen to survive, say you go down, they roll poorly, you can call in another one as soon as that one's resolved. Super powerful, super versatile. If they've got, well, the other thing he also does is he controls deployment quite a bit. Nobody wants to bunch their stuff up like this if they have an artillery or an air observer over there, because you'll call in that airstrike on one of these central units towards the end of the turn, so nobody can move away from it, and it's going to come in, it's going to do pins. All these guys are going to take D3-1 pins, and whoever squad's target is probably going to die. Or they're definitely going to have to go down to have the amount of hits, and they're done for that turn. And they're probably going to have, you know, 4 or more pins on them, because they take even more pins from getting shot. So definitely take a forward observer. If you're a new player, he's 75 points. He brings you anti-tank capability. He brings you board control as far as determining, you know, where the enemy's going to deploy. He brings you anti-infantry capability. He also will draw a lot of assets in trying to hunt him down and kill him. So let's say you never even brought in the airplane. You put this guy in a fully enclosed building. Not this building because it's wrecked, but a fully enclosed building, and he's a small team, he's in a building, long range, because you're going to put him way back on the edge where you can see, and people are shooting stuff at him. That's assets that are not shooting at your foot sloggers going across the board. and when that airplane comes in, it's going to raise hell. Your Sherman tank, which can be in here, it's got the versatile 75mm gun, D6. It's like a light howitzer against troops, multiple machine guns, pintle mount, heavy machine gun, medium machine gun on the whole, blasting away. They may have a tank, but they don't want to bring it in where you can drop an airstrike on it and destroy it. So your Sherman may have a turn or two of freedom of movement just because your guy is back here saying, you bring your tank in, I'm dropping an airplane on it. So it's very, very powerful. That's one of the things that they're thinking in second edition they may modify. As of now, it's not. As of now, I would absolutely include him in every American list. Alan had a string of bad luck of rolling ones when it was coming in, and when you do that, your opponent gets to target one of your units. So I've encouraged Alan, for all the reasons I just said before, other than knocking out a unit, is to hold that in reserve. Not off the board reserve, but just don't fire it. If that thing is waiting here until this guy is dead, as an opponent of his, I can't have two of my squads even working together. If they're near each other, it really exposes them to getting that airstrike called in on them. You start clumping up like it happens, especially in like a secret mission scenario or hold until relieved. Things start clumping up in the middle, and you haven't fired that airplane yet. A lot of people want you to fire your airplane early to find out what happens. And you hold that thing, boy, it's aggravating being an opponent of that because it's hard to kill this guy. You know that can come in. Turn 5, you're losing. That's when you say, you know what, hell with it, here comes the airplane. Call it in, it comes in where it's supposed to, wipes the unit out, puts pins on it, change the game. It's a game changer. Very powerful. Alright, the next and the last question it looks like is light, medium, or heavy artillery. Well, that kind of goes along the same as the line of the mortar. Artillery is pretty awesome, actually. It's way better than an anti-tank gun because it can fire indirect. The cost is cheaper. It can do multiple pins, and usually has a gun shield. Again, it's going to be fitted to the tailoring of your army. You don't have to go out right away and buy an artillery piece. If you have that free Sherman that came with the firefighter set, he's got a light howitzer on him, and he can fire in multiple rolls. Mainly, it's going to be a support weapon. If you're going to take that mortar and take that howitzer and have that 2 indirect fire, that's great. The howitzer can fire over the barrel too, so it's more versatile than the mortar because it can fire over the barrel. But then again, it's a fixed team artillery, so it can't hardly move, where the mortar can get up and run like infantry and go 12 inches. It's going to be, obviously, I think the medium howitzer is probably the best value and the best sportsmanship. Normally, even in the bolt action rules, it says it's unlikely you'll ever see a heavy or medium howitzer. But the reality is the points value for what they can do is too low, or they're too powerful. I personally feel that light howitzers should be the only thing on the board, and medium or heavy should be what the artillery observer is calling in for an airstrike. But that's not the way the rules are. And the way the rules are, medium howitzers, HE 2D6 is very, very powerful. And I would encourage you to take that. If you're going to be purchasing an artillery piece. Now, the joy is, a lot of times, at your local clubs, like I have the British 25 pounder, it's a light howitzer. It also counts as a light anti-tank gun. So it's got a little extra penetration firing an anti-tank round. It looks like a medium howitzer too, it's big. I mean, if I go to a local game store and say, hey, this is a medium howitzer, the guy's going to go, okay. And he's going to know that. It's not a big deal. You don't technically have to have a medium and a heavy howitzer and a light howitzer for your models. So you buy that medium, or you buy that big, bulky, like the 25 pounder is quite a bit more bulky than the 75mm howitzer. I think you model that up. You can play it in a lot of games as whatever you want. I do that with my medium mortar all the time. Let's say this is a heavy mortar, I'll put one extra guy on it. So I just make sure my opponent knows it's a heavy mortar as opposed to a medium mortar. And actually I'm starting to switch away from the heavy mortar and I'm going to start taking medium mortar a little bit more. Not because the points seem silly, but you can take the medium at regular, and I'm really going to try to work on my composition score, and I think the medium is much more favorable, where you get dinged a little bit for that heavy mortar, especially if it doesn't fit your army. And that's pretty much everything right there. I hope that I hope this was helpful. But basically, in a nutshell, to get yourself rolling past that starter set, that D-Day firefight set, one box of infantry will pretty much make everything. Because out of that box, you can make a bazooka. Bazookas are awesome. 24-inch range, +5 penetration, I think. Doesn't reduce at long range for the penetration. It's a shaped charge, so it's harder to hit. You take that bazooka with a veteran team. It's a 2-man team, hard to hit, hard to kill, needing 5s up, especially if you get some type of nice cover. And you can basically take I think a veteran bazooka team is 78 points. Now you can take them regular and save points, but you're really not. I can take this 78-point guy and keep a Panzer III at bay for the rest of the game. He spends the rest of the game trying to hide from me, move around from me, stay away from me, or kill me. So I've now taken a 200-point unit and I've matched it with an 80-point unit, and I'm ahead in the points. That allows my other guys to do what they need to do. You could always put some anti-tank grenades on one of your squads too. Anti-tank grenades are not very powerful. Well, see, this army list, if this was American, I have anti-tank here, I have anti-tank and anti-infantry here, and I have anti-tank and anti-infantry here. And then these guys are anti-infantry big time. So I may want to squad them with anti-tank grenades. They do two things. One is my opponent goes, they have anti-tank grenades, and they just want to stay away from that squad. It sounds worse than it is. Because to kill a tank with anti-tank grenades, it's not easy. You'll auto-pass your I shouldn't say auto-pass. You'll test at the normal morale for a tank fear. And you would charge in. If I haven't moved, I'm hitting on a 4-up. If I've moved, you're hitting on a 6-up. If I ran, you can't even assault it. But so it hasn't moved. I pulled the first order dice, and I've got that 8-man squad that I've been talking about. 8 men. So I'm hitting on 4-ups. Mathematically, I should get 4 hits. The armor for most of your tanks is 9 or 8. So it doesn't use any top or side or rear armor. It's just a straight armor value. So a 9. I get 4 hits. I need to roll a 5 to glance it, a 6 to penetrate it. Not that good. I mean, you're really hoping for some hot dice and get 5 or 6 hits and then roll that other dice. Tank to tank, you don't always kill tanks. It takes several turns to kill a tank, and they're very survivable. Getting hit with a medium anti-tank gun even doesn't necessarily mean you're out of action. So, but it is a psychological factor. It does give you one more tool in the toolbox. If you have the extra 2 points per guy to take, it doesn't hurt to have at least one squad to be your, if you do get up in there and you're up in that combat, because if you don't have anti-tank grenades and you're going to assault, you have to test at -3, so you might fail and just go down. That's horrible towards mid-game. You'd rather at least be doing something than just going down. And then you you can only glance it, so because it's -3. But anyway, so yeah, for limited funds, buy that army box set. And that goes for if you're going to be doing the German or the American out of that D-Day Firefighter starter set. Because say you bought that D-Day Firefighter and you have the Germans, which is less guys, a half track. If you got the free tank, I think you can choose the Panzer IV A or B, which is the light howitzer. So you have that core. You're going to be adding to that infantry set, same thing. Actually, the German one's probably a little less versatile than the American one. The American one's very versatile because it gives you a bazooka and stuff in there. But anyway, I hope this helps. If anybody else has any questions, comments, things they want me to talk about, definitely put them down there. I greatly encourage it because I don't think about some of these things sometimes, and I just want to grow this hobby and grow this sport and keep get more people playing bolt action. All right, thanks for watching.